Shalom uvracha from Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh. With the help of Hashem, we continue our study of the ethics of the fathers, the study of Pirkei Avot, and this evening we hope to study chapter 1, Mishna 13, Perek Aleph, Mishna Yud Gimel. Before we read the text, I'd like to point out that there is a very unusual aspect to this Mishnah, which is unparalleled almost, and with a few exceptions, throughout Pirkei Avot, in that the language of this Mishnah, we are studying the teachings of one of the greatest Jewish leaders of history, the teachings of Hillel. We spoke about him in our previous Pirkei Avot study. But this Mishnah is written in Aramaic. The language of Mishnah generally is Hebrew, a beautiful stylistic Hebrew. Hillel's teachings are in Hebrew. The teachings of almost all of the rabbis in Pirkei Avot are in Hebrew. Maybe we'll get to the teachings of Ben Hey, Ben Bagbag. Maybe we'll speak about them in terms of maybe why they used Aramaic. And in the middle of his teachings, we have several Mishnayot here, those following in the text. Mishnah 12, Mishnah 13, Mishnah 14 are the teachings of Hillel, and they're basically in Hebrew. Mishnah 13, Mishnah Yud Gimel, is in Aramaic. And I was looking through the commentaries as to a suggestion as to why. Why did he choose? He could have taught these identical teachings in Hebrew. And it's also interesting to point out in the second chapter of Pirkei Avot, which with the help of Hashem we will get to someday, in Perek Bet of Pirkei Avot, Perek Bet Mishnah Vav, again we seem to find Hillel speaking in Aramaic. There are various approaches, there are several approaches. I really do not have an answer that's satisfactory to share with everyone. If you have an answer, please share it with me. If anyone here wants to say something, or anyone viewing this recording, if you have something to say about Aramaic, I would love to hear why did he teach us in Aramaic. I once heard a rabbi say that since this Mishnah speaks about the possibility, God forbid, of someone who will receive the opposite of reward, will be punished, or will be put to death because of certain kinds of activities, that the sensitivity level of Hillel was so great that he didn't want to teach it in Hebrew. He taught it in Aramaic. And the proof for that would be that in Perek Bet, in the second chapter, when he teaches again in Aramaic, it's also a story about someone that was punished and will be punished, someone who punishes others will be punished. Can it be that he didn't want to teach these teachings in the pure language of Hebrew? There are other approaches, that this was a spoken language, but that doesn't explain why this particular teaching is in Aramaic. Again, if anyone wants to submit an answer, I'm very, very interested in hearing it. Anyone here want to say something? Why Aramaic? Okay, Mishnah Yud Gimel. Hu haya omer. Hillel would constantly teach. Not Amar Hillel, but Hu haya omer.
Maybe that's the difference.
I'm sorry?
Maybe that's the difference. Meaning, some things are formalized lessons that were given, and some things are just things he spoke about all the time. So when he was speaking, he spoke in the vernacular. When he was teaching, he would teach in Hebrew. So if the idea that the Mishnah is trying to convey is something that he taught in a formalized class, we're going to use Mishnah Hebrew. But if it's Hu haya omer,
I love what you're saying, and I respect you greatly, but it doesn't fit. In other words, if you look at the next Mishnah, I hope to study it next week. The next Mishnah is Hu haya omer, Emein ani li mili, it's pure Hebrew, right? Shani latzmi mani. And if you look in chapter 2, whereas Mishnah Vav is in Aramaic, the Mishnah before it and the Mishnah after it start with the words Hu haya omer. It's a pure Hebrew. So I don't know the answer, but I do think this should be studied. I do think this is an area that should be investigated and should be written about. I'm sure it has been. We have, thank God, many commentaries, probably hundreds of commentaries on Pirkei Avot. I was in the library of Yeshivat Merkaz Harab. You have shelves and shelves and shelves of commentaries on Pirkei Avot. The question is, who was exactly the one dealing with the question of why it's an army? Let's try to study the Mishnah. Huaya Omer, he would constantly say. This is the teaching of Hillel, who was teaching this on an ongoing basis. It means he taught this many times. He taught this over and over. There are, I think probably with every single rabbi, there are certain teachings that you don't hear from this rabbi once. You don't hear from this rabbi several times. Huaya Omer, this is what he was always saying. Maybe, what? Yeah, Margalov B'fumei, correct. As Rabbi, that's correct. Margalov, it's constantly teaching this. Huaya Omer. So if you go to a lecture on this topic, on that topic, very often they can be studying completely different texts, completely different sections of Torah, completely different sections of Jewish law and Jewish thought, and somehow this would again surface. Huaya Omer, or it didn't matter which holiday. Some teachings are seasonal. It's a Chanukah teaching, it's a Pesach teaching, Shavuot, but no, Huaya Omer, it didn't matter which time of year either. He was always teaching this. Negid Shema Avad Shemeh. Negid Shema Avad Shemeh means if a person makes deliberate efforts to make his name greater and greater and greater. He wants everyone to recognize his greatness. Self-aggrandizement. See how great I am? Negid Shema. He wants to stretch his name. He wants to raise his name. He wants his name to reach great levels of fame. Well, that's not the goal of our teachings. That's not the goals of our Torah. It's not there for personal levels of honor. There will be honor for great people, but if a person sets out, I want everyone to recognize me. I want everyone to see how great I am. Negid Shema, Avad Shmeh. God forbid he will lose his name. It means that his reputation will be damaged. It means that instead of acquiring that which he's trying to acquire, the opposite will take place. Since he's trying so hard for everyone to look at how great he is, maybe everyone will see how the opposite of great he is. Negid Shema Avad Shemeh. So often in life there are people who want everyone in the world to recognize their unique contribution to humanity. Now everyone does have a unique contribution to humanity, but it doesn't mean that a person should walk around all day saying, "Do you see me? Do you recognize me? Do you know how great I am?" That would be an example of Negid Shema, Chas v'Shalom, Avad Shemeh. Hillel is called in the Talmud an Anvitan. L'olam yehei Adam Anvitan ki Hillel. Now, Anvitan is a complicated word, but it is related to the concept of humility. Hillel was a very, very humble man. He was the leader of the Jewish people. He was the Nasi. He was the head of the entire rabbinic court. He was the head of the Sanhedrin, and yet he was a very, very humble person. So maybe my father, every time he would come across the phrase, I had the privilege of learning from my great father of blessed memory. My Abba taught Pirkei Avot many times. He would teach it in his Beit Knesset, Shabbat afternoons during the spring and summer months. So I had the privilege of learning Pirkei Avot from my Abba, and he always would say, "Hu haya omer," means he was what he said. Hu haya omer. He was what he said. A lot of people have beautiful what? Yeah. Many people, they say great things, but they don't. They talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk, right? Hu haya omer. So hu haya masha omer, right? Hu haya omer, right? I don't think it was my father's original teaching, but he emphasized this over and over again whenever he studied Pirkei Avot. Hu haya omer. So Hillel is the ultimate example of that. He had so much going for him. He could have shown everyone how great I am. He could have shown everyone how elevated I am. And the Talmud teaches stories about how people tried to degrade Hillel, and they came and they disrespected Hillel. And Hillel, lowered his esteem and answered all kinds of questions on Friday afternoon at a time where most people have no patience. And this person came bothering him during his pre-Shabbat, preparations. He's banging on the door. Hillel! He comes out and he patiently deals with everyone because he's an anvatan. He's humble. Hillel is humble. It says in the Talmud that Hillel couldn't find anyone to run properly, to escort. He has a teaching that if someone was accustomed to a certain level of wealth, at least during the initial period, after they lose their money, you have to keep them on a certain level. They can't go from igra rama libara mikta. You can't overnight take a person who yesterday was the head of a corporation with hundreds and hundreds of people working under his supervision, and then the next day just make him stand in the street corners and beg for supper. And Hillel was sensitive to this. He said that sometimes the exaggerated case would be someone who's accustomed to a running servant, announcing his arrival. Here goes. He says, and if such a person lost their wealth, maybe, at least initially, there has to be someone running with them also, a running attendant. But who's going to be the running attendant for someone who can't even pay for a running attendant? So the Talmud teaches that he did it himself. Hillel was he volunteered for this job, but he was such a great person. He's the one who teaches Nigid Shema. It's much easier to learn it from someone on the level of Hillel, right? If someone would be trying the whole time to build up his own name, who are you to tell us about building up your own name? But he lived that life. Nigid Shema, Avad Shemeh, Udela Mosif. And if a person does not add to their levels of Torah knowledge, Yasef, God forbid, they won't be living very long. They will be taken from this earth. It should never happen to anyone. Part of Torah study is not just to stay stagnant. You have to add. You have to increase your wisdom. A person who feels so complacent, I know everything. I've learned it all, from A to Z. What do you mean, Mosif? There's no Mosif in my case. He has to learn more. She has to learn more. I know everything. That's the same kind of problem. That's the same problem as the Gid Shema. Udila Mosif. And if a person does not add levels of Torah, you can't really stand still. The ascent to the altar, it says in the Torah, Lo ta'aleh b'ma'alot. There weren't steps leading up to it. It was a ramp. On a ramp, you're either going up or you're going down. It's very, very hard to stand still in one place. On a step, you can stay there for who knows how long. If you're not going up, then you're going down. If you think you're going to just stay on the same level, you're going to lose it. The La Mosif Yosef, everyone has so much more to learn about Torah. The wisdom of Torah is endless. Arukam eretz midah, rechava miniyam. There's no end. There's an infinity of wisdom of Torah. What do you mean you've mastered it all? If you are so arrogant and you think that you have, then God forbid it'll be the opposite of blessing. And that could be the reason why, at least according to certain schools of thought, it's always important to learn new dimensions of Torah. There are some people who have their particular commentary that they relate to. That's beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful. You have your mifaresh, your parshan of the Torah that you most identify with. But have you learned the other parshanim? Have you learned the other mifareshim? There was a great rabbi. His name was Rabbi Feivelson. Zatzal. He was the head of Teachers Institute in Yeshiva University, and his daughter once told us, Hashem should bless her, a close friend of Henny's, close friend of Hashem should bless her, a close friend of my wife, Rabbi Feivelson used to announce every Simchat Torah to his family. Simchat Torah is when we complete the cycle of the Torah reading and we begin the new cycle. And he would tell his children, okay, this coming year, I plan on studying the Torah with the following commentary. This is the year of the Ramban. I'm going to try to study from Breshit till V'zot HaBracha. This year, I'm going to be studying Rashbam. I'm going to be studying Sefurno. I'm going to be studying Malbim. I'm going to be studying... That's a beautiful way. Dela Mosif, you have to add. You have to add to your knowledge. Increase your knowledge. Expand your knowledge. The Chavot HaLevavot, I believe, teaches that the books that you studied when you were young, some people are still studying it the same way. They learned Parashat Noach when they were 6 years old, and now they're 16 years old, or 36 years old, or 56 years old, or 86 years old, or 106 years old, and they're still learning it the way they learned it when they were 6 years old. Mosif, there's more to Parashat Noach than your second grade teacher taught you. Dela Mosif Yosif, Udela Yalif. I learned the way Rashi learns. I mean, there are other ways of translating this. Dela Yalif Kitala Chayav. There'll be, I don't like to translate these terms, Kitala, about death and severe punishment. I'll just say the opposite of great reward. But if you want to know the exact translation, look up the text yourself, right? Dela Yalif, if a person refuses to teach. Rashi writes it as follows: Misha eino melamed l'chol shoel. People come and they ask you questions. They seek knowledge. They seek understanding. They seek Torah, but you're not interested. You're interested in your own self. That's the common thread of this Mishnah. It's all about me. It's all about me. And if I teach you, then you know as much as I do. So how will I be special? So there are some people who are very, very hesitant to share their wisdom, God forbid. There are many people very, 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 very careful not to teach others what they know. Then, Baruch Hashem, the great people of this world share everything they know with everybody, because as our great teacher Moshe said, "Mi tein kol am Hashem neviim." Remember when there was a message to Moshe that Eldad and Medad are saying words of prophecy. How can they say words of prophecy? Moshe is the chief prophet. And Moshe answered, "Hamekaneh atali? What are you taking up? You're jealous for me? If it was up to me, everybody would become a prophet." That's the ultimate level of humility. The opposite of that is Dela Yalif Kitala Chayav. The person that does not want to teach, Chas v'shalom, it's not a very great level. There's some people don't even share recipes. Like, I want my chocolate cake to be special. If I teach you I don't know how to make chocolate cake. I'm saying, the people who know how to make chocolate, my chocolate cake. I want my chocolate cake to be my chocolate cake. But if you know the recipe to my chocolate cake, she knows the recipe. So it's not my chocolate cake anymore. So how will I identify myself as a chocolate cake baker? Teach. There was a great woman in this neighborhood. Hashem should bless her. I don't know if I should say her name on YouTube or not, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows who I'm speaking about. If she's watching, she knows who I'm speaking about. She used to make a living. She used to sell decorated cakes. Decorated cakes. That was her. She would bake cakes and all kind of fancy, scenes on the cake, bar mitzvah cakes and wedding cakes and Sheva Brachot cakes and birthday cakes with beautiful design. Once a year, she would put up a sign in the neighborhood that she's offering a free lecture on how to decorate cakes. Free lecture on how to decorate. I once went over to her and said, "How can you do that? You're earning a livelihood based on." That's a great person, right? That's right. A person who is Yalif. They teach. Go over to someone, or some people feel, I don't have time to teach. If I teach, so I'm losing time in my own advancement. This comes from the same self-centered attitude which Hillel is trying to remove. Udi ishtamash b'taga halaf. Again, I'm not translating the word halaf because if you're interested in the exact term, look it up in the Mishna. And the person, what? Yeah, that's right. The ishtamash b'taga, the person who uses the crown of Torah, the person who is interested in people respecting him because he has Torah. The person who wants to receive special honorable mention, wants to receive gifts, wants to receive recognition because of the crown of Torah. The crown of Torah is not there for your own personal benefit. You're supposed to glorify the name of Hashem in the world. But the opposite of blessing, the opposite of reward, be careful. Torah is a great level of accomplishment, but if you use it in the improper way, it can lead to the opposite of blessing. It could be that since there are so many negative comments in this Mishnah, maybe Hillel chose and preferred to write it in Aramaic and maybe put it into some kind of special level of speech. May we all learn how to properly use the Torah, how to properly reach levels of humility, properly understand that no matter how much we know, there's so much more to know, and may we be constantly open to sharing our ideas and our wisdom with others in the spirit of the teachings of our great teacher Hillel in the Mishna, in the spirit of all of those great rabbis who spent their lives teaching. They could have studied on their own, but I don't remember whose teaching this was, but I heard it from my Abba. My Abba said, maybe he said it in the name of the Lubavitcher. I just don't remember, I'm sorry. He said, V'afta l'reacha kamocha ze klal gadol b'Torah. Right? Rabbi Akiva teaches that loving someone else as much as you love yourself is the great principle in Torah. My father once said, V'afta l'reacha kamocha, caring for someone else, loving someone else, ze klal gadol b'Torah. This is also the most important principle when you're learning Torah. So let's say I'm learning, and I'm reading this page and this page, and you come over, you say, can you teach me something? So I think, I'm learning, leave me alone, go somewhere else, right? V'aftal recha kamocha. Love someone else, zeklal gadol, Torah. In the Torah that you're studying also. Care about other people and share your wisdom and your knowledge with others as well. Everyone be blessed with all the blessings that Hillel infers through these teachings. Thank you so much for listening. Shalom Bracha.